Hi, everyone. Good to see you all here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So welcome to our brown bag session on youth empowerment in climate actions. So my name is Savi. You will see me later. We have amazing round of dialogues, discussions. So all of the colleagues who are here, I can see amazing introductions and connections already over there. And then we hope to have a lot of discussion. So without further ado, we want to directly jump in to the floor today. We have an amazing lineup for the next 1 hour. So to begin the discussion, to welcome you all, we have two amazing colleagues, Jenny Laja from our SIDA, Swedish Embassy colleagues in the Bangkok, and also Hita Kani, our YECAP coordinator, but also our Keith Yango global focal point to welcome you all. So over to you, Jenny and Hita.
In recent years, we have witnessed a growing movement of young people across this region, calling for action on the climate agenda. And this growing movement is here and now. They are not only the future, but they are also the present. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Jenny Kolstelager, and I work at the Swedish Embassy in Bangkok. 2 weeks ago, I participated in the Environmental Human Rights Defenders Forum in this region. The forum was closed as some of the speakers feared for their lives. I met this young woman from Southeast Asia, and she told me her story about sexual harassment and torture because she stood against the illegal logging of the forest that her community depends on. Young people in this region, they're risking their lives because they defend the environment, the land, and indigenous people's rights. This is also the Human Rights Week. And it is a privilege to welcome all of you to this brown bag session that we're organizing together with several actors. But it's also a huge privilege to welcome many of these young people from this region that every day are calling for actions on the climate agenda. Asia Pacific is home to more than half of the world's young population. And I think that this represents a huge potential for these countries. How can we use this force from thousands of young people in the region to be involved in a meaningful participation in the climate agenda here and now? And this is what we will be discussing at this brown bag session. We have a common but differentiated responsibility for the climate. And when I moved to Bangkok a year ago, I was shocked by the toxic, thick smog cloaking this and other countries and cities in this region. The sky turns from blue to gray from dust during the dry season. And I think this does not mirror the UN resolution that was passed a couple of weeks ago in the Human Rights Council, recognizing access to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment as a universal right. Nor does it reflect the groundbreaking initiative, the principle and policy guidelines endorsed in this region a couple of weeks ago on children's rights to a safe, clean, and healthy, sustainable environment. But this resolution and the policy and guidelines is there. And COP26 might not have met the rightfully high expectations of the youth in the world. But it did make progress on some crucial issues. The Glasgow Climate Pact, agreed by all governments at COP26, does, for example, urge parties and stakeholders to ensure meaningful youth participation and representation in multilateral, national, and local decision-making processes. And this is why we're here today, to listen to those youth. I think it's now time for nations to work together with civil society, in particular youth organizations, with the UN and with private sector, to implement this breakthrough and to implement and fulfill the Paris Declaration. The growing movement of young people in Asia-Pacific region is here and now. And it's a privilege to welcome one of these youth voices, whom I met for the first time last week, and has already inspired me. Hita Lakhani, she's the YECAP coordinator, but she's also the Young Global Youth Focal Point. Hita, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon from India, and I hope you're all doing well today. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you today, speaking right alongside Jenny, who is such an inspiration herself, and also working with this amazing team in the UNDP. So jumping right in, on the notes of COP26. COP26 concluded only a few weeks ago now. And as we look at what we have achieved, we did make progress, like Jenny rightly mentioned. There were a lot of critical issues that were completed. So we did really make progress. But I think it's very easy to say that we're really not at the pace and scale where we really need to be. And with the negotiations, while we're making progress, it's still a process which is slow, it takes its time, and it is extremely complex in nature. So putting all of that together, we're really, at this point of time, when we talk about COP26, we're really finished a lot of the talk, a lot of the negotiations, a lot of the policy, a lot of the drafting is ready. What we're moving into is also from the UN point of view, we're moving into the implementation stage. So we're really moving into how we can put all of this that we've spoken for the past 26 years, really just put it into action and start. And this is where I think it gets even more important to look at the approach on how we're doing this action, who we're engaging with, in what form is this engagement looking like. It really adds to the bigger picture of whether the change is meaningful, whether the action is happening in a more inclusive manner or not. And I think there are definitely some good examples that we do have, talking about different types. When it comes to youth engagement, of course, youth and climate are the two biggest things that a lot of people across the world are talking about. So much of interest, so many eyes on young people, and especially young people in the climate sector. And while it's absolutely great to have all the attention and all the spotlight on the youth, we do need to realize that this challenge cannot be achieved by the young people by themselves. This is a challenge that we have to work together. So it is an intergenerational challenge. We need to work together with generations from across the world, throughout sectors, whether it is private sector, civil society, business, public, whatever that might be. All of that put together, only then, when we come together as a massive force, will we be able to break walls and really build something concrete bottom up. So we're in this kind of shift. We're in this kind of a stage where everything is shifting. It's a little unstable, but it's a very positive type of shift. It's a very positive type of space to be in, because we're seeing movement. We're really seeing accountability happening. We're seeing young people. Also, the way that we work with them depends on whether are they really being heard, or are you just having, for example, a tick box of I had, yes, a young Indigenous woman as part of the panel. But after that, after you've ticked the box, I think we really need to look at what do we do? Are we engaging with this community, or whatever this person has said on the panel, how is that reflecting into action and into work beyond is really, really important. And I'm so happy to be wearing these multiple hats, to be a part of Youngo, but also to be part of YECAP, to be a part of the family, and really work together and ensure that all the work that we're doing, whether it's in the Asia-Pacific region, but also globally, it's truly meaningful in nature, it's truly looking at the bottom up, but also has the top-down approach, and it has the family, it has the built-in feel of working together with the UN, but also with other sectors of society. So super happy to be here today. Won't take too much of your time. And with that, let's dive right into what we are meeting here today for. And I hand it over to Savi and Björn.
Thank you very much, Hita. So I will take over. I hope you can hear me well. I'm joining you today from Rome in Europe. And my name is Björn from Dam. I'm 24 years old and have since the last 1.5 years been working for the UNFCCC Regional Collaboration Center for Asia Pacific, also known as RCC Bangkok. And my colleagues Jens and Banashi are also here today. And together with Savi, we wanted to just give a short background to why we came together as partners to initiate this cooperation on YECAP. As UNFCCC Regional Collaboration Center, we work together with partners to deliver on the mandates given to us by parties to the convention, having programs on climate finance, carbon pricing, NDCs, transparency, and adaptation. But crucially, with the rise of the school strikes, the growing movement of youth, and the need to urgently address climate change, for our common future, we wanted to expand our activities to empower youth across the world and the region. Already, a lot is being done by the UNFCCC Secretariat centrally on youth, mainly through the Action for Climate Empowerment, or also known as the ACE program, working to increase public participation, outreach, and education on climate change, but also through the AGILE, the Academy for Global Youth Leadership Empowerment program, implemented by the RCCs, and working, of course, in close collaboration with Yango, the official youth constituency of the UNFCCC, which we really believe is key and which we think is a central part of this partnership to ensure that we are not just UN partners and other partners coming together, but actually bringing the youth into the process from the start, ensuring an inclusive and meaningful organization. Because addressing the issue of youth empowerment, just like climate change, cannot be done by one organization alone, not by one country alone, or with one single initiative. It needs to be done through deep and meaningful collaboration, through cross-sector platform conversations and structural action. From the UNFCCC and the RCC Bangkok side, we are incredibly happy to have initiated this journey together with UNDP, UNICEF, the British Council, our youth partners, and of course SIDA, just 1 year ago, to address these key issues, to ensure that we empower youth across the region to take meaningful climate action, and as we will soon see, immediately also garnering immense interest from the youth of our region. So with this, we are super excited to see this come together, to meet you all here today, to build into the processes also Stockholm +50 and other global, regional, and national agendas. And we look forward to working together with all of you to support and empower the young climate leaders of today and the future. So with this said, thank you very much, and over to you, Savi.
Thank you so much, Björn. I think as you all colleagues who are joined here today, I think just recently joined as well, you can already hear the amazing the reflections from the organizations and the youth voices who are leading the platform, and you will be hearing more as well. So my name is Savindra Natunga, or you can call me Savi. I'm the UNDP Regional Youth Project Manager, who is based in the Bangkok Regional Hub. And then as you already heard from the previous speakers as well, this is an organizational challenge, but also something very close to our hearts and something that we work in day in, day out. So me as an individual who is also a climate related, like social entrepreneur working on agropreneurship in Sri Lanka, and also as an environment engineer working on green buildings and others, it is a personal issue that I have been seeing as an individual over the last decade or so in my professional careers and programming careers. And then working as United Nations Development Program, I think the climate change and this agenda is the agenda of the entire United Nations, the development world, and every human being in this planet. As you already saw from our initial video, don't choose extinction. I mean, that's our strategy. But for UNDP side, so it has been one of the key pillars of our development pathway for over the many decades in the past, specifically focusing on resilience, the nature, climate, and environment is a very key pillar of our work. And then we see a lot of country fiscalists joining here as well. There's in this particular region, we are working in over 36 countries through our 24 offices, working very closely with the governments, addressing from the policy making, implementation, but also structural programs to address the climate adaptation and mitigation, to entrepreneurship, on energy in various programming areas that are most catalytical and influence towards the resilient and NDC agenda of the country. We have been working with, and then of course with the partnership with the Global Climate Fund, Global Environment Facility, and many others has been in the traditional background. But the very important field, as you have been hearing during the last couple of years, UNDP embarked on this journey with many partners, including many of you are here today with our UN partners, SEED and others, on the Climate Promise. It's an initiative now spanning across over 120 countries across the world, in almost 27 countries across this part of the world, where we really working hand in hand with the governments on the leading up to the COP26 with the NDC revamping and NDC discussions, but also thinking how to effectively, in a more inclusive setup, how to implement them as well. And in that pillar, youth came as a very important pillar, not just because how we articulated it, but actually governments took that responsibility. I think there were a lot of data is being crunched these days, but we have seen almost double the number of NDC commitments where I'm mentioning about youth and young people and the engagement, not again a tokenistic way, but also in a way in terms of policy creation and implementation. So I think we can see an amazing drive in the NDC agenda, but a lot need to be done in the future years to achieve the vision, as you already saw in terms of the programs over there. And the last but not least, why it made sense for youth empowerment as a program. So in parallel to this initiative or the collaboration we have across the region, we have been conducting many youth initiatives on social innovation, entrepreneurship, leadership, and political participation, civic engagement, and governance. We see climate as a key pillar in all of these activities, and it actually has been growing. For example, Youth Collab is one of the initiatives that we convene with UNDP and City Foundation. We see almost half of the countries across the region, almost 12, 15 countries are actually focusing on climate change from this year as one of the major thematic areas for social innovation entrepreneurship. So I think the space is correct. So, and we had the interest, we had the young people coming together and organizations came together. So we curated this platform. So just before we handing over to our youth leaders, you might be hearing about what is this YECAP, a lot been talking about what is the context and others. So we have a couple of minutes for you to just to grasp what is this the initiative, and then we'll hand it over to our youth speakers to share their views over there. So let me share the screen. Okay, please enjoy. great. So hope you all grasp what is this YECAP all about, but we are coming into the most exciting areas for today's brown bag, and listening to our youth leaders who want to share their opinions, views, and reflections from COP26 and some of their suggestions. So without any further time, let me hand it over to Lorenzo to start with, and then our 5 youth leaders. Lorenzo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Savinda. Can you all hear me clearly and see my video clearly as well?
Yes.
Thank you very much primarily for having me here. My name is Lorenzo Sablay. I am a young medical doctor in training, as well as a mover envoy and a YECAP fellow from Manila, Philippines. Mabuhay from the Philippines, as we say it here in our country. So I would just like to share some reflections that we had in terms of YECAP youth consultations, as well as movers climate workshops that we've done since the past months this year. And I just want to start with saying that 2021 has been a blast for everyone, for the youth, despite the pandemic that we're still having. And it has been such a great opportunity to be a part of the Movers program and of the YECAP platform to inspire the youth towards action for our planet and for the SDGs. So from the youth consultations that we had in the world we want from various youth all over Asia Pacific, we have come to know that the youth have surprisingly a clearer picture and goal regarding the world and the planet that they want in the future. They have a clear sense of ownership and responsibility that they are the drivers for change towards the world that we all want and we deserve. The youth also know what is wrong, what is currently the problems, the lapses, the barriers, and the insufficiencies in current climate-related policies, actions, and initiatives. They're also aware that there is a climate crisis, and regarding the urgency of it, most of the youth would also be involved already in current climate organizations, alliances, startups, networks, and other groups who innovatively act for our planet. And a great number would also be very eager and interested in joining or starting a group for climate action and advocacy. Now going to the movers workshops that we had regarding climate action for both children and youth, I can also say that we had an amazing level of eagerness and engagement. They are very open to learn and absorb the knowledge from the workshop modules, but are nonetheless also aware of the current impacts and negative consequences of climate change in their very own communities and nations. Some of the youth participants would also share personal experiences and stories about how climate change has actually affected their own lives, families, houses, communities, and also their aspirations. Both the youth consultations and workshops with the youth participants ranging from primary school age to even young professionals showed and validated that not only are the youth already somewhat knowledgeable, aware, and affected by climate change and its multidimensional impacts, they're also very much open in terms of being further increasingly capacitated regarding climate knowledge and awareness towards being catalysts for much needed action towards positive impact for our planet. But the problem here is that the youth are still extremely underestimated, undervalued, and also shadowed in terms of inclusion in climate decision making, receiving support and important opportunities to amplify and enhance action, and also in terms of a highly valued trust to be our own drivers for our brighter and greener future, for the world we all want and deserve. You know, the Movers program and the YECAP platform represent innovative youth-led movements that we all need today for a much needed behavioral and perceptual change. I used to always say that the Movers program and now the YECAP program is a program by the youth and for the youth, but it's also a program by everyone and for everyone. And these are both initiatives that's set to change perspectives and stereotypes amongst the youth, and also break the barriers and conventions for meaningful youth participation in climate action towards positive community impact. And in order to finally act towards the world we want, everyone must accept that the youth are not mere vulnerables in terms of climate change, of its impacts and consequences, but also, more importantly, the youth, we are the very drivers for the positive change we urgently need. After all, it is us, the young population, who will inherit and be affected by the future impact of the current actions of everyone. And going back to the definition of sustainable development, which we all strive for, especially now in the decade of action, we are centered on development that will ensure that it will not negatively affect the future of the coming generations. So with that, I'm very, very honored again to be part of both the Movers program and the YECAP platform. Thank you. And may I pass it on to also a very accomplished young leader, a YECAP fellow, and also involved with the energy sector from China, Han.
Hi, yes, thank you, Lorenzo. Can you hear me?
All good, Han.
Okay, I will share my screen since I made some slides. Okay, I hope you can all see my screen now.
Yes.
So hi everyone, this is Han from China, and I want to say thanks to YECAP for inviting me here as a YECAP fellow and the youth myself. It's always great to have the chance to share my perspectives on the challenges and opportunities for youth in climate actions. Professionally, I work as program associate at Energy Foundation China under industry program. And previously, I had also some experience at UNESCO on water, gender, and climate change. I had also the pleasure to moderate the youth consultation for the UN's high-level dialogue on energy through YECAP. And that's why I will put a special focus on the energy side today. So, next slide. As you may know, China now is working to peak its carbon emission by 2030 and reach carbon neutrality before 2060. And the energy sector is the source of almost 90% of China's greenhouse gas emissions. And we're seeing this huge energy transition facing our generation. It certainly can be done without youth playing our role. I believe that youth as the agents of change could be bringing new integrated solutions, facilitating the transition in our communities and pursuing careers towards the decarbonization of the energy sector. So where are the major gaps now? I found out that even though a lot of policies, national and local action plans and projects are being undertaken, little youth engagement is in them. The clean energy economy workforce is dominated by senior or male employees. And there is also lack of financial support and capacity building for young people to develop or maintain themselves in the changing energy sector. In some regions, young people might choose careers in the fossil fuel industries because adequate educational and professional training are provided there, or sometimes it's simply the only viable job option in that region. So governments need to understand this to create adaptive plans for young people in this transition. So here are some of the recommendations generated from the consultation I did before and also from myself that I want to share with you. Firstly, there should be more access and resources for youth to develop their careers in clean energy industries. For example, business incubation platforms can empower young entrepreneurs to work on integrated solutions and scale up their businesses. Scholarship programs, paid internships, or other sorts of direct funding can enable young students and researchers to conduct R&D. And YECAP, as a platform that joins multiple international organizations and institutes, can definitely play an important role in channeling young people with these resources they need. especially financial flows for them to create the impacts on the ground. And secondly, I think that we should mainstream and provide youth with trainings on sustainable energy, climate justice, digital skills, and soft skill like communication. Only in this way can we untap youth's potential in joining the workforce of the clean energy sector and also cooperate with the local communities in this transition. Of course, governments and enterprises should take a lot of responsibilities in this, but I do think that YECAP can initiate more educational and capacity building programs or a mentorship program to really empower youth on these topics. And thirdly, and also I think the most challenging one is to assess and strengthen national and regional youth engagement in the whole energy ecosystem. It can start with identifying the status and gaps for youth inclusion within the system, and we can set up mechanisms to collect youth feedback for the whole life cycle of policies, programs, and activities. It would be valuable to form more partnerships with youth organizations and youth-led initiatives. In these actions, YECAP can for sure be of great value and play an active role. So that's all of my reflections and recommendations. And I personally will do my best to promote youth engagement within my organization and even beyond. You have my word, but to really make the tangible change and impact, we need long-term and joint efforts at all levels. And I sincerely look forward to that. Thank you. And next, I will invite Lynn to tell us more about her story of how she started the Climate Strike Thailand. And let's welcome Lynn. You have the floor.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Lynn, and my name is Nantisha Otadanchai. I'm a environmental writer and climate activist who's based in Thailand. So I founded Climate Strike Thailand almost 2 years ago now. So that was around the same time that the global climate strike movement happened. And it wasn't something I had really learned to do, just something I jumped right into. But so I had held or organized about 5 or 6 climate strikes offline, but with the COVID event and also the political situation, that's kind of surfaced back. But right now my main focus and work is back to storytelling and through writing as well as filmmaking. And you know, sometimes some people might wonder, like, what does storytelling have to do with like real climate action? But I think in order to first understand or tackle an issue, you have to understand it. And to understand that, as humans, we need a segment to, like a format or a channel to receive this information, and stories are some of the best ways to do so, because we're like social animals. That's how information has been passed down from generation to generation. And especially with climate change, where just as someone who's not a climate scientist, who's not studied environmental issues, I, for one, needed stories to help me understand what climate change means to me or my family or my community. Climate science can be an extremely complex topic to understand. And, you know, in a lot of countries like mine, Thailand, in schools where we're not really taught this kind of science or even the most basic ecological sciences. And so this concept, when spoken about, can be really, really overwhelming. And a lot of people may just turn off from it completely. So in activism, when you're trying to advocate for climate change or climate action, it can be really difficult because particularly in a region like Southeast Asia, you know, awareness is still really low. And also when people have awareness of this thing called climate change, people still don't know how it's relevant to them or what they can do about it. So stories, the kinds that I try to tell are really, I try to make the stories I tell really relatable, or at least understandable, and something that people can recognize in their everyday lives, in their surroundings. And not thinking of climate change as just some, you know, floating concept or very vague or abstract terms of, you know, 1 to 2 degrees Celsius of heat temperature increase, but rather understanding that first the ecological science of it, how things are connected to each other, how we impact our ecology, as well as how our ecosystems play such a huge, or basically covering our entire lives. And with climate change, another part is, you know, not just talking in terms of natural disasters or one-time events, but rather really illuminating the ripple impacts of climate change, particularly on youth. I want to share with you one story that I covered, which might be an example of what I mean, which is about this coastal community who's has been experiencing sea level rise and coastal erosion and land subsidence for the past many decades. And I went over to this town, which is not so far away from Bangkok at all, maybe like an hour or two, to cover a story about these climate impacts. And what I found out is besides you know, the very common climate impacts that you might see from frontline communities, say in this case with sea level rise, you might think, okay, displacement, and then you lose homes and then you relocate. But coming here, I learned that, you know, that's not it. Once you relocate, you not only lose as a family or as an individual, you not only lose that kind of stability, but say with the youth over there, they you know, their entire lives and their future was shaped from that. Their future opportunities, their education, their employment. What was really stunning to me was, you know, this kind of natural disaster happening. The to put it in more simpler terms, there were families there, and they had parents who, as a result of these things happening to their coastal community, the community dwindled, the population dwindled, and so it became less developed, and then people moved away, and so these the parents, they lost jobs, they lost employment, and so they weren't able to afford education for their kids. And so there was, I think there's free education there, but the kids who went to school there, from like 200-300 kids in school, there were only 4 students left in this school being taught by one single teacher, among, you know, mixed age of kids. And so these kids, they weren't able to learn to read and write properly. They didn't have the sufficient amount of classmates to be interacting with, or like a community that was big enough to, you know, somewhat serve as like a normal social setting. And so they began developing almost like a social awkwardness within them. And that really comes to show, you know, it's not just like there's just so many layers to the impacts of climate change, many of which have not even been studied. You know, for example, this with not only just that layer of education, but down to social interactions and mental health, and, you know, onwards from there. And especially for youth, because these are the building blocks of their lives. These are the building years. It's just really crucial. And I just wanted to leave that off, you know. Well, these are the stories of impacts. It doesn't always end at that. This community also started, you know, they decided, okay, we're going to do something about it. And so they began reforesting mangroves, or building breakwaters, or, you know, all these kinds of ecotourism, bringing up, you know, making their own solutions. So these stories can also have a really proactive and optimistic outlook. So I'd like to emphasize not to only, you know, cast the light on such vulnerable communities as victims of this, but to really show them as empowered individuals who can take matters in their own hands, and with some support they can do much better. So yeah, I just wanted to leave off with that story. I hope that illuminates some of what I'm trying to share with climate impacts and solutions, and the way that stories can shape our narratives and our perceptions of what climate change is, and how we're connected to it. Thank you. And oh yeah, sorry, and I just like to throw that over to just give. I would like to throw that over to Vishal.
Thanks, Lynn. And thank you everyone for the invitation and for the opportunity to be able to share some of my experiences as a youth campaigner. I'm from Fiji, and so I'm part of the organization known as the Pacific Island Students Fighting Climate Change, and also the World's Youth for Climate Justice, which are both youth-led organizations that are seeking to advance climate justice. Our main campaign for both of these organizations is focused on seeking an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice on climate change and human rights. So for us, we see that the current progress and the work on the climate fight can benefit from a legal catalyst such as the advisory opinion, and can help contribute to the progressive development of climate law and human rights, and at the same time clarify the obligations of states in protecting the rights of current and future generations from the adverse effects of climate change. Now, campaigning on climate change was not something I had planned whenever I think about my career, but for us in the Pacific, as is the case in many climate vulnerable states and frontline communities, we are thrust into the climate fight because of the sheer gravity of the impact it has on our communities, on the experiences we have on the daily basis. And when you think about this, and when it is coupled with the very slow and very glacial pace of action in the global stage, it becomes really a threat for us. And today, I'd like to share some of those lessons that we've learned and some points that we learned through my journey, through our journey as a campaigner, and some points that can help young or youth campaigns more generally. So in our campaign, we found success. The first thing, and we found success in, was trying to first build a strong base. Our campaign started with 27 law students from a regional university, which was, and it started with just writing letters to our leaders to consider a campaign to take climate change and human rights to the International Court of Justice. And what followed was a considerable amount of work that was put in to ensure that we provided sound, innovative, and inclusive and impactful solutions that were in many ways beyond and could contribute more to the status quo. This meant hours of research, cultivating relationships, securing endorsements, building membership bases through educating and activating activism, and also laying clear visions, milestones, and goals that all helped us in setting the right foundations for our work. Now, this foundation laying added credibility to our campaign. Many times young youth campaigns and young people more generally, and the activities that they do, are not taken seriously. And this is what you hear from, and this is the reality. Youth voices are often disregarded because we failed to command credibility and authority, which can come from having right foundations laid initially. So the common pie in the sky kind of statements that we often hear, they do not help the youth voice. Instead, it reinforces the often held idea of the naivety of young people that becomes a basis for many to disregard youth voices. And so what we need is clear deliverables, specific goals, and campaigns that avoid the problem of generalization. And we can bring in an abundance of creative, and I say we mean young people, we can bring in an abundance of creative and innovative solutions to the climate crisis that tackles the problem and is specific and impactful if we only set our minds to do that. Now, for us youth, and this is the second point that I'd like to make, is that building capacity has always been a challenge to our work. And this is another reason why many times we're not taken seriously. We need to look inward and build ourselves to be able to produce quality work. And this is something I'm speaking on behalf of us as Pacific Island students in the campaign that we've been doing. It's been a very technical and very legal campaign. And so this has been one of the biggest challenges we face. So the only way we can gain respect and credibility is by producing and showing quality work. And that can only happen if we have spent time building our capacity. In the digital and technical age we live in, this is a challenge that we can, to some extent, easily maneuver around. And I say to some extent because there's certain things that must be passed down, that we need to pass on, that needs to be passed on from and Hita mentioned this, intergenerationally. So for instance, at COP26, I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to be part of some negotiation sessions there. And what these sessions showed me was the importance of the various skills that one needs to develop in order to be able to effectively contribute to important processes such as these. You're talking about interpersonal skills, communication skills, knowledge and research, discipline, building relationships and connections, etc. And these are some of the skills that you can see right at work right from the outset. And as young people, you can only develop these practical and hands-on skills by becoming involved in a more hands-on way. That means youth need to be included in such discussions and sessions like negotiations if we are to learn and build our capacity. There really is only so much that you can read and digest, but it is something else. There's another additional benefit that you can get as young people if you are getting hands-on knowledge. So for this, and this is if for organizations and leaders that are here and out there as well, leaders need to always ensure that youth are at the table. We always hear this common phrase, and that they are there as a key consideration, not just to get their voice, but as a way to train them, as a way that they need to be on the table to learn. We need to be on the table to be able to grasp these skills, grasp these opportunities, so that these opportunities can be great knowledge transfer opportunities that can be provided for young people. So for youth, this would mean seizing every available opportunity that we can get to be able to learn and to develop ourselves, develop our skills, so that these can form strong building blocks for our campaigns and for us to make meaningful change. And so there's so many other points I'd like to mention, but in the interest of time, I'd like to mention these two brief points. But I like to leave with one of the most important lessons, that we must continue persisting regardless of the challenges. We must keep going, because that's the only thing we can do. And we must, because we bring a very unique perspective to the climate crisis. We bring a renewed vision, we bring renewed energy. And this is something we've got a lot of times. And that's why young people are so important, and we must not give up. And so I would like to turn the floor now to another fellow colleague of mine who I've met at COP, Antoine, and he'd like to also share some of his experiences at COP26. So Anne, I'd like to give the floor over to you.
Hi, thank you, Vishra. Thank you very much. So my name is Anh. I am from Vietnam, and I have the privilege to go to Glasgow, joining COP26 and also COP16, the Conference of Youth, and sharing my experience. Let me share few images from my trip to Glasgow to all of you, so you can have a glimpse of what it is. Sharing. Okay, so you can see me on the screen. I hope you can see me there. So this is me joining a climate strike. The reason why I chose this photo, because this is not something that we can see in Vietnam, and I believe that in many other Asia-Pacific countries, because of different challenges, political situations, political dynamic, but that was a great experience. So that's the flag of my organization in Vietnam, the Youth Climate Action Network. And going to COP26, I was a young person, but I was also a young professional working for a network of CSO in Vietnam. I'm coordinating a network of different civil society organizations in Vietnam working on climate change. So I have the privilege, the opportunities to work with many people, with the government, working directly on the policies. And then here's some of the activity that I joined at COP26. This is me introducing YECAP at COP26. And I believe that what we need, it's also a challenge for us, is to have more opportunities for young people to go out there, to have dialogue, to share our stories, especially talking with policymakers, talking about policies. And I believe that not many young people in my country and also in the region have the privilege that I had work directly with policy, to go to the big conference talking about policies. And I believe that we need more support to have more opportunities for us to be there at the table, so we can raise our voice, we can bring out our messages. We just need opportunities. We are willing to do it, we are eager to do it, but we just need more space for us to raise our voice and to contribute. And here's another initiative that we did, the YECAP Climate Hackathon that I showcased at COP26. So let me just move. This is another photo that I joined another panel talking about climate finance. And going to this point, I like to raise another challenge that young people in the regions, from my observation, face, that when it comes to climate change, and especially working on climate policies, it is, I would say, a scary word for young people in my country talking about policies, because it is a bit overwhelming for them to understand policies. They don't even be able to, they can't even distinguish between what is law and decrees and like different terminology. So I feel that to empower young people working to work more on policy, we need to help them to build capacity and knowledge. With that, it has to start from educations. It has to start from a very little thing like creating a space for young people to freely discuss about policies, to raise their voice, and also creating more opportunities for young people to work at policies. For example, I have the opportunities because I am working there. I chose to work, but we need more of that working opportunity for young people, so they can go directly in the policy rather than being an observer, an outsider, and then looking at policy as something that is too big, too far away, beyond their reach. So I had the privilege to join another panel talking with my government from Vietnam as well. So we need more of that. And the next slide is another panel that I joined with the girl from Singapore, and this one from Pakistan, and other from other different countries. And one of the challenge and also one of the lessons that I learned from COP26 and also my experience working with young people in Vietnam and also in the region is I was very surprised that young people in Europe, in Northern America, in Africa, they all have alliances. They all have alliances. They have like different organizations, different networks, and different collaborations, but none in Asia Pacific and in Southeast Asia in particular. And I feel that's also a challenge for us, because when we work in policies, when we work in policy advocacy, especially in the region like Asia Pacific, we are culturally consider young people as naive and inexperienced. So we need to build more alliance. We need to build more networks, so young people can learn from each other. Young people can work with each other across the borders, so we can actually build a stronger force to step into the policy and then make the influence. So to conclude, three the challenges that I like to share with all of you here are: the first one, the opportunities for young people to speak up, to join the policy space. The second one is the capacity for young people, more learning, more hands-on practical learning by working. And the last one is alliance. So that's the reason why I feel YECAP is a very important platform for young people to network, to learn, and to build alliance without alliance, we cannot do anything. So that would be it for me. This one is photo I took with young people from Latin America, and this one is with the AIDS working group. That would be it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Antoine, and amazing speakers, as you can already see in the chat. I think really, really amazing. We should not be summarizing. I think that's a disgrace to all the amazing sharing. So I think also noting on the timing as well. I think just hopefully that colleagues could stay over because we have an amazing question and answer section after coming up as well, so that we can interact with them. But just before that, we have two important sharing for both of all of you, from listening from young people, what are we providing from the YECAP platform, but also with the Stockholm Plus 50 as well. So without further ado to sharing on them, I will invite our colleagues from Lamia and then also to Anna. So Lamia, over to you.
A movement to meet a moment. Thank you so much, Savi, and also to all the amazing speakers. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Lamia Alom, YECAP Fellowship Coordinator, a fellow from the first cohort, and also a Movers Envoy from Bangladesh. I'm so grateful that I was given this opportunity to share about my YECAP journey and also about the Youth Empowerment in Climate Action platform today with all of you. Against the backdrop of pandemic, I have been volunteering my time through the Movers program, a regional movement of volunteers who develop sustainable development goal, climate change awareness, entrepreneurial mindset, and 21st century skills by conducting localized training at a grassroots level. And through the Movers program, I got the opportunity to be a part of YECAP Fellowship Program. Well, YECAP is a platform which is our very own platform. So many challenges basically we can see prevailing now, and perhaps more in the future as well. But I, as a voice of young people, cannot deny the challenge of climate change. And also what I can see that young people are demanding a change in the approach of climate action. And I'm hopeful for the future ever since I have dived into the world of young change makers here in YECAP. YECAP is creating opportunities for young people from diverse communities by holding the ground and offering a space to implement innovative ideas and actions by bringing them in one platform. The objective of YECAP is to unite all the active youth to work for climate action with their innovation and climate action plan through meeting all these four objectives we can see on screen. And then comes the three approaches: downstream, midstream, upstream, which also comes along with the fellowship program. YECAP Fellowship Program is basically to ensure the support to find the solution for young people, led by young people together, trying to address challenges and initiate climate action for locally rooted communities to solve the problem with and by young people. So now one question can come through all of our minds, that what makes a young people or like the young generation a YECAP fellow? Well, we are looking for young people with diverse perspective, with dedicated to climate justice, and also who has their own initiative or engaged with locally rooted climate initiatives. Primarily, we are considering them eligible for being a YECAP fellow. And here, as you can see, there are 4 phases of YECAP Fellowship, from launching the application to screening, shortlisting, and to connect with the local youth network, startup, government, development organization, and much more to scale up the impact of the climate action plan they have initiated or they have designed throughout the fellowship journey through the phases of mentorship and the scale up process. During the process, YECAP allowed me to meet with so many incredible youth climate advocates, climate entrepreneurs, as we can see on screen: Zawad, Rafi, Nawal, Aruz, Michael, Muhaimin, Ridima, Lorenzo, Antoine, and many more who are the part of this YECAP Fellowship Program. And here on screen now we can see a tentative timeline which shows the key milestones that we are hoping to achieve for 2022, but yet to be confirmed, but as an overview of what our fellows are going to do together in this YECAP platform for next few months. And moving forward, while talking about climate action, taking action, and much more. It's not only about talking and talking regarding this, it already has been started, as you can see. Our fellows, like we have 31 fellows in our ongoing cohort. We have organized 16 plus climate action session to connect and support young people, young climate activists in the region, which allowed more than 250 young people to learn about the climate change and above all to connect and inspire to enhance their climate action. And in fact, so many of them are already working on different climate action initiatives in their local communities. Well, today we are here with so many participants, as we can see, and I believe all these strong young voices have the willpower to make change for a better future. And with you being the bridge, on behalf of YECAP, I can say this, that setting the example for people around you, tomorrow we hope to have 1 million, 10 million, even 100 million people taking action for the climate. And trust me, you can always count YECAP, Yongo, and Movers program to always support you in doing this, always having your back in this. And also for people who are interested in getting a career in climate, YECAP could provide the network which help you to understand whether it's a good fit for you or not. And that's why we are here with potential scale-ups to help our fellows to initiate their ideas and find out their passions to which way go further even after this fellowship journey. Because I personally believe that to mitigate the climate crisis, we definitely need more voice of young activists, but also we need climate scientists, climate experts, climate policymakers from the young generation to choose the climate action as a career, not only as a hobby. Last but not least, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the organizing team, to Ben, Savi, and all my fellow colleagues here for standing up for young people always, for always holding the ground for all these young leaders, and for letting us bring the change for a greater social cause, for finding the real solution for the climate. So thanks to all of you. And now with this, to share about Stockholm Plus 50, I would like to hand it over to Anna. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone from Stockholm. My name is Anna Axelsson. I work at SIDA's headquarters in Stockholm. And I am the coordinator for SIDA's work on the preparations for Stockholm Plus 50. And before I go into talking about all that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's spoken. All the youth leaders today have been shared really impressive stories, I think. So thank you. Stockholm Plus 50, as you probably know, is an international UN meeting that will happen in Stockholm next year in June, the 2nd and 3rd of June. And it is Sweden and Kenya that are jointly hosting this conference. And it marks, of course, the 50 years since the first Environment and Development Conference was held in Stockholm in 1972. And the title of this conference is going to be A Healthy Planet for the Prosperity of All, Our Responsibility and Our Opportunity. And I want to emphasize that this conference is, the scope and mandate of this conference is going to be wider than just climate change. It's going to encompass biodiversity, our relation to nature, production and consumption patterns, etc. And it really aims to break the silos between the different agendas within the wider environment and development agenda, so to say. And the aim is to contribute to reaching the commitments already made under the Agenda 2030, under the Paris Agreement, and the Global Biodiversity Framework that will be decided next year. So breaking the silos between these different areas and accelerating action towards the commitments already made is the aim of this conference. And it will center around 3 so-called leadership dialogues. So 3 themes that will be central to the conference and to the preparations leading up to it. So this means that most initiatives that are going to be linked to the conference also need in some way to link up to these 3 themes, which are, the first one is reflecting on the urgent need for actions to achieve a healthy planet and prosperity for all. The second one is achieving a sustainable and inclusive recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And the third one is accelerating the implementation of the environmental dimension of sustainable development in the context of the Decade of Action. And all of this will lead to a final result, which is a summer of discussions and a number of recommendations coming out of the conference. It's not going to be a negotiated outcome, but mainly a series of recommendations. And CEDA's role in all of this is to contribute to the planning and implementation of the meeting, with a particular focus on strengthening the participation of civil society and particularly youth influence in both the planning and preparation for the conference. And the Swedish government, being one of the hosts of the conference, wants to follow up on the legacy of the Stockholm 72 conference, which engaged civil society in a way that hadn't really been done before. So they want to ensure that civil society, with a specific focus on meaningful youth engagement, is at the heart of Stockholm Plus 50. And for this reason, the government of Sweden has decided to support the Stockholm Plus 50 Youth Task Force, which is currently being formed and established. It's going to be convened by the National Council of Swedish Youth Organizations and also the UN Major Group for Children and Youth. And the objective is that this Stockholm Plus 50 Youth Task Force will facilitate the intergenerational dialogue and also see how we can create sort of robust structures for meaningful youth engagement, not only at Stockholm Plus 50, but in multilateral policy processes and meetings to come. So, how can we learn from this event and create structures that work in the future as well? And the task force is, as I said, is just being convened and hasn't quite started its work yet. But youth engagement in this process is going to be built on 5 principles. It will engage youth in the preparation and the delivery and the follow-up of the conference is the first one. It also wants to build on experience of how youth engagement has been done in the past, but also give space for innovation in how to involve youth. And it wants to involve or aims to involve youth organizations to engage both in advocacy, capacity building, and action. And it's also important to ensure that there will be a diversity of youth representation. So from different countries, different groupings of countries, and different groupings of people, so with different kinds of interests in youth organizations. And also then to work in a way that ensures that the outcomes can be carried forward after Stockholm Plus 50. So in summary, you could say that the Youth Task Force is aimed to be a bottom-up youth engagement towards Stockholm Plus 50. And it is composed by individuals who will lead and facilitate preparations and inputs and engagements of youth globally, leading up to the conference and during the conference. And they will also coordinate and provide substantive input to the conference as such. And they will also mobilize wider youth communities and facilitate the engagement of a range of both formal and informal youth groups in the Stockholm Plus 50 process. And I think it's this last point that should be interesting for YECAP, as it could be interesting for you to liaise with this youth task force once it is up and running and to understand how you could contribute also to their work. So I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna. This is such an absolute pleasure to hear from you. And I can definitely vouch everything that you said about the Youth Task Force, because just last night I got an email from the UNEP Major Group for Children and Youth to nominate 2 young people from Yangon for the task force. So there will definitely be a lot of connection between Yangon and this task force.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, looking forward to this engagement in the next few months ahead in the lead up to the conference in Stockholm in itself. So with that note, I know we're already over time a little bit. So we will end straight up and we will go into the Q&A and the more networking session. So if you have to leave, that's fine. But otherwise, we would love for you to stay back for the next 15 to 20 minutes, where we can just talk, answer any questions that you might have, and also just get to know one another in a more informal manner. And before we move there, A huge round of applause also to everyone who's been part of the YECAP family, from the co-conveners, so right from UNICEF to UNDP to British Council, UNFCCC, of course, and all the youth organizations that are also part of it. Because without this, we would never have been able to call YECAP meaningful, to call YECAP what it is, and really do everything that we're proudly talking about today. So thank you for being a part, and thank you for trusting us. And let's dive into the more informal and more fun part of the session today. The floor is open if there's anyone who wants to speak, or if you have a question, or if there's just some feedback that you want to share, feel free to raise your hand and I will try and moderate it as much as we can.
Second question.
Yes, Jasmine.
Sorry, that wasn't me. Someone else was speaking, but should I go first?
Yes, go first. And if you want to speak, you can either just write in the chat that you'd like to speak, or raise your hand and I can take your question.
All right, great. Thanks, Geeta. I'll go first if that's okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for this amazing sharing session. And I'm particularly very amazed by all of the accomplishments and also the efforts that was being put in by the youth climate advocates across the region, particularly under this YECAP platform. My name is Jasmine Irisha, and I'm the Climate and Environment Consultant from UNICEF Malaysia. I just want to share a bit about some of the work that we do here in Malaysia. I know I saw from the presentation there's one Malaysian YECAP fellow. So perhaps I could elaborate a bit more on what we've been doing so far in the past couple of months under youth engagement and climate action, not specifically under YECAP, but we have another initiative called YELD, which is Youth Environment Living Labs, also a collaborative effort between UNICEF and UNDP Malaysia. Basically, it came up from a series of events. Last year, we published a Change for Climate report where we found out that 92% of young Malaysians think that climate change is a crisis. Moving on to that, we kind of probe a bit further about what Malaysian youth think about the climate crisis, right? More often than not, it kind of adopted a very westernized narrative. So what we're doing here in Malaysia is trying to localize those climate narratives and emphasize on local and also indigenous perspectives when it comes to nature and the environment. Also to strengthen the ecosystem of young Malaysians and also the network of youth organizations here in Malaysia. I was particularly compelled by the stories of young people at COP26 as shared earlier, because myself, I've been attending COP in the past couple of years as a youth also, but now working with UNICEF, trying to sort of implement some of the mechanisms and framework in terms of capacity building and movements here in Malaysia. Building onto that, I'm happy to share that moving forward for next year, we've kind of put together a platform, a dedicated website on Resource Hub, where we are going to showcase a lot of local climate narratives, particularly from the indigenous and local perspective. I have a couple of questions. I'll keep it short. I'll just ask one question to the youth here. I'm not to hog people's time. So a lot of you have attended COP26. You've gone through a very rigorous sort of training series or capacity building sessions in the lead up to COP26. And also I saw the momentum of movements that is being put together for next year, anticipating the regional events in June and also COP27 at the end of the year. So my question is to the youth who are actively engaged in these arena, what are the things that you look forward to the most, knowingly learned what you know from COP26, and how do you plan to implement that in your home country? So over to you, Geeta, to pass on to the youth advocates.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Is there anyone here from the youth that we had speaking, if you want to share a little bit of the insights on what you plan to do? So I think there were, in the presentation, people mentioned how they were representing their organizations at COP, And yes, and I think if you want to just jump in and quickly bridge the gap here.
Hi, thank you for the question. So I just want to quickly share some of my ideas. Nothing concrete, but I think one of the key achievement of COP26 is to the new Glasgow working program, the new Glasgow work program on action for climate empowerment. And I think that is with a very strong focus on youth and children and youth. And I think that could be an opportunity for us in my country, in Vietnam, and also in the Asia Pacific regions to foster ACE implementations. Because as my understanding, not many countries in the region has ACE implemented or meaningfully implemented. And I also feel that it could be a good opportunity for us because countries are now encouraged to go back to COP27 to update their NDC. So it could be a good opportunity for young people in different countries and also other regions to start thinking about their involvement, their participation in the NDC updates leading up to COP27. Yeah, that will be it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. Is there anyone else who maybe wants to add on to what Anne has said? Maybe Lamia, I think I'm going to put you on the spot, but maybe talk a little bit about everything that you've been doing on the ground, but also with YECAP and how, you know, that's bridging between COP26 and now in the lead up to the next conference.
Thank you so much, Hita. So, whatever I'm doing at this moment regarding this, if I go to share, I think it will take a lot of time, but now at this moment I'll try to be precise with my work. So as I was saying that I am also a fellow from the first cohort. So while being a fellow of the first cohort, that space allowed me to initiate a climate action plan in my community, which is a 90 days of climate action plan. I'll be sharing the link of the blog, which you can read out regarding my climate action plan and much more that YECAP fellows are doing at this moment. So during this project, we are trying to reach locally rooted people and marginalized community to work together in this regard. And also with fellows, we are initiating some of the events onwards, for example, Climate Action Week and much more in upcoming months, keeping the COP27 in mind with the following notes and objectives and the ground we find out after COP26, if I say in short and precise notes. So that's all so far, and I'll be leaving all the links in the chat section so that for further more information, you can visit the links and have some insights about what YECAP fellows are doing, what I'm doing, what we are planning to do as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lamia. Yeah, I think Lamia also has a huge amount of experience and stories to share from the work that she's been doing on the ground. So I think maybe at one point we can have a 1-hour session just chatting with everything that Lamia is doing. Yes, Sarita, I see your hand. Over to you.
Hi, my question was this that actually the UNFCCC-IGES is the main organization plus UNDP is also the organization as such. I'm just a beginner. So is this like they are coming through British Council plus spiritual organizations such as Brahma Kumaris? And I just wanted to ask this that in the COVID times, is it more effective, like people who are doing more physical activities such as in the community level is fine, but some are going to Glasgow and something, so that would obviously not matter much, right? It's just that what you can I mean, what does matter like in this, because it's not in my scope to go and then basically I only can do digitally what I can, and it's in my scope, but there are a lot of issues because of COVID and like everything, like those rules which are there, like when you get there you have to be in quarantine and everything. So what does exactly matter is that which organizations they're coming through. They came through my school also, Summerfield School. That is when I was in 11th and 12th. So UNEP MGCY logo, I had seen that. So these organizations which they are targeting, I can come through all of them, or only British Council or Brahma Kumaris, or might be anyone who is making me feel that, yeah, that would work for me. Like through any organization, I can approach UNEP MGCY, right?
So I can take this. There are a few different sides to the question. UNEP MGCY is, of course, it's a youth constituency of the UNEP. So basically, it's a group of young people. It's again entirely volunteer based, and anyone who's under the age of 30 or 35 can join UNEP and become a part, UNEP MGCY, and become a part of their network. So it's very similar to Yango. It's our sister constituency. Yango is under the UNFCCC, and UNEP MGCY is under the UNEP. So that is one side of engagement where you can be a part of them, or similarly also with Yango, or there's a youth constituency under the UN biodiversity process called Global Youth Biodiversity Network. So most UN bodies have youth constituencies that engage within them. And most of them are volunteer in nature, so anyone can join them, do whatever you like in the area and feel that you're interested in. The other side is on how you can become a YECAP fellow, and I think maybe that is your question on how you can join. So currently we're in the second fellowship, in the second cohort for the fellowship. And while we're really building up on this in the months ahead, it will of course change as YECAP and the fellowship grows as well. But for now, nominations are coming in through the convening partners. And again, a lot of the convening partners, like for example, all of the youth movements that you have, whether it's Youth 2030 or Movers or Yango, are open to young people from anywhere to join. So you can be a part of those. You don't necessarily need to be a part of an organization or a network or a community, so to say, to be a part of YECAP. And then, of course, when you look at meetings, whether it's in COVID, of course, there are challenges. COVID has only amplified a lot of the challenges. All of these conferences that happen in person, going to a COP in itself is a matter of privilege. And within COVID times, of course, that privilege is really only exacerbated because it is really limited on who can be there and to what extent. So that is a whole different side of the game. The next negotiations will happen. The intersessions will happen in 6 months, but the negotiations, the big COP, will happen in a year's time. The global situation might change by the time, I mean, people are still learning how to work in times of a pandemic. And I think by the time we come to the next COP, it should get a little better. But modes of engagement for all of these are very different. So what is more easier to engage, and even if you're at a COP, the easiest or the most meaningful way is to be a part of a network or a community where you can then learn, ask questions, and also feel like you're really making an impact. So engaging in these bottom-up youth organizations is a lot more simpler, but I think would be the first step to take.
Okay, I'm yeah, this is the whatever is in my background, such as I'm in wherever I have been, and they are coming through those organizations. So maybe I can go through them instead of just choosing one organization like Brahma Kumaris or British Council. I can look forward to what all other ways of coming. Like it's a way, like British Council is also sponsoring for this UNDP activities. So I can go through British Council plus also any other organization. That's a brilliant idea. And plus also I'm directly a member of UNEP MGCY also, but now I'm just looking for a job as such, and till the time I'm getting job, I'm carrying on these activities as my hobby. And plus, if I can do something, I would be grateful. If anything required, I can do. You can tell me. Thank you.
Super. Yeah, it's great to know that you're already part of UNEP MGCY. If you have any questions on how to join, feel free to write to me or also reach out to maybe Linka or Dinlong or Lamaya, and they can help you also as well. So last few minutes, if there are any more questions that anyone might have or anything that you want to reflect on or share about.
Hello, this is Morgan from UNDP Vietnam.
Hello.
Thank you so much for the very inspiring and very insightful presentation. It was really wonderful to hear the experience of all the youth. So thank you very much. Just to share about the experience in Vietnam, what we did is that we started this project last year, and our idea was to very concretely understand what are the bottlenecks that the youth face in undertaking climate action in Vietnam. So that really resonates with some of the presentation made by the speakers. Lack of financial, lack of capacity or inclusion at the policy level. So to do that, we organize different consultation all over Vietnam, and then a write-up in which we invited 30 youth to really together think about this main accelerator and main bottleneck. So I will share the link to the chat of the report. And what came out of this is, and that also resonates with what the speaker earlier said, is that there is a lack of climate information that are accessible and reliable to the youth, and especially in their own language. There is a lot in English, but it's not always easy for youth who doesn't speak English to access that. So really based on what they said, based on what they told us at UNDP, we created this website called the Youth for Climate Learning Hub, in which we broke down, climate science, LULUCF, energy transition, and it's all in Vietnamese. So, and in English actually. So if you want to have a look at this, and we believe that this is really a strong point to build the capacity and enable them to connect. There is also a map that shows all the climate initiative, youth climate initiative that are happening in Vietnam at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morgan. I think that's absolutely amazing to see all the work that has been going on at the country level, but also at the regional level, and how we're really bringing them together, connecting them. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Maybe we have time for one last question if there is any, and then we can wrap up. And if there is none, then maybe if you can put on your videos, we would love to take a big family picture with everyone. So if you're able to switch on your videos, that would be absolutely great. Okay, as we wait a few seconds for videos to come on. Okay, so now I have two screens. I'm going to try taking this photo. I have two screens, and I don't think you know which screen you're on from my side. So I think you have to keep smiling for the entire duration. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, and 3. And one more time for the next screen. Give me 1 second. And there you go again. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And it's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to working with all of you in the months and years ahead. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon, evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, everyone, keep safe.